Ever feel like you're stuck on one of those hamster wheels,
Hmm.
you know, just going through the motions and dealing with one fire after another?
It's a pretty universal feeling.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And you know what's crazy? People have been dealing with this for like forever.
Centuries.
Centuries. That's why we're doing a deep dive into Epictetus.
Yeah.
He was this Stoic philosopher, super insightful, who lived back in ancient Rome.
And he had a lot to say about this.
He did.
He
He did.
did.
And you actually sent over some excerpts from Epictetus, A Stoic and Socratic Guide to Life.
Yes. It's a fantastic resource.
It is. It is. So we're going to, really unpack his ideas and see how they can help us today, navigate the chaos of just, well, living in the 21st century.
What I find so fascinating about Epictetus is that he wasn't some, remote sage meditating on a mountaintop.
Right.
He was teaching in Nicopolis, which was a busy Roman city. Imagine the sounds, the crowds, the energy. And right in the thick of it, he's offering these timeless insights on finding inner peace.
Wow. Okay, so teaching in ancient Rome, that definitely wasn't your, quiet, stuffy lecture hall.
Oh, definitely
I
not.
bet those classes were lively.
Oh, you're absolutely right. The sources describe him as this really dynamic teacher, someone who used humor and satire to really make those points hit home.
I love that.
Yeah, think of him like a stand-up philosopher, making people laugh while simultaneously blowing their minds.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
thankfully, his student, Arian, who was obviously a very meticulous note-taker, he recorded all those teachings.
Oh, wow.
So everything we know about Epictetus today comes from Arian's dedication.
Wow, so we owe Arian big time for, basically inventing lecture notes.
Absolutely, yeah. Speaking of influential figures, Epictetus was a huge, huge admirer of Socrates,
Wait, like the Socrates, the know thyself guy?
the one and only.
Wow.
And Epictetus, he considered Socrates' methods completely essential for self-improvement. He believed that it wasn't enough to just, grasp the concepts intellectually. He
Yeah.
had to really embody them, live them out.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's walking the walk.
Exactly, exactly. It's like someone saying, oh, I'm Jewish, just because they were, what he called nominally baptized. They went through the motions without really connecting with the faith.
Oh, I see.
And Epictetus uses that analogy to show that true philosophy, it's about inner transformation. It's not just some intellectual game.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like he took that whole know thyself idea from Socrates even further.
Absolutely, he did.
Right.
Epictetus believed that true self-knowledge, it went beyond just introspection. He argued that it also involves understanding our place in the grand scheme of things, our connection to something much bigger than ourselves, even to the divine.
So it's about understanding our role in the universe, not just in our own heads.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to kind of the heart of Stoicism. You see, Stoicism often gets misunderstood as this emotionless, rigid philosophy.
Right. It's like you're just supposed to be indifferent to everything.
Yeah, that's a very common misconception. What Epictetus believed is that it's not about suppressing your feelings, but about really understanding what we can and cannot control. And he argued that, we can't control external events, but we can control our judgments about them.
So it's about mastering our reactions,
Yeah.
not trying to control the uncontrollable.
Exactly. He
Ah.
gave this very powerful example. Imagine, for instance, a tyrant is threatening to imprison you.
Okay.
Epictetus said that the tyrant, they can take your body, they can take your possessions, but they can never take your will, your inner freedom.
Wow. Okay. Just, sit with that for a second. That's a powerful thought.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And it applies to so many areas of life, even something as simple as, your material possessions. And there's actually this great story about someone stealing Epictetus's expensive lamp.
Wait, someone stole his stuff, and he was just cool with it.
He was remarkably calm about it.
Really?
Yeah, it came from this place of, he'd already mentally prepared himself for that possibility, that something could be taken from him. He understood that attachment to material things, it only leads to suffering.
Wow.
It's a bit like, that saying, you don't own things, you just borrow them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that kind of idea.
It's about accepting that things come and go, right? We can't hold on to everything forever.
Exactly. Epictetus is really urging us to loosen our grip on those attachments a little bit and, find freedom in that detachment. And what's interesting is it's not just about these lofty philosophical ideas with Epictetus. He also offers very practical advice for living with integrity.
Yeah.
He compares resisting temptation to the discipline of an athlete in training.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So building willpower is like working out at the gym.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great analogy. So just like an athlete pushes their body, to its limits, Epictetus really believed we need to train our minds
Right.
to resist those impulses, and make choices that are aligned with our values.
Totally. Like you can't, just show up on race day, to run a marathon, hope for the best. Like you have to train for that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And, for Epictetus, a key part of that training was cultivating something he called natural integrity.
Natural integrity.
Yeah. And what he believed is that we all have this sort of like this innate sense of right and wrong, like this inner compass, guiding us.
Have you ever had that feeling where like deep down you know what the right thing to do is?
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it's like harder or less convenient or whatever, you're just like,
Yeah.
I know I need to do this.
Yeah, and Epictetus's argument is that we should really try to cultivate that inner voice, that sense of integrity. Now, here's where things get really, really interesting. He even extended this compassion to criminals.
Wait, he thought criminals were just like misunderstood.
Well, not exactly misunderstood. He believed that their actions, however wrong they were, stemmed from like a flawed understanding of what's truly good.
Oh,
Like they were acting on what they perceived as beneficial.
well, cool.
Obviously, he wasn't condoning those actions,
Right.
but he believed in trying to understand the root of those actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's like recognizing that everyone is like working from their own moral framework,
Right.
even if it's one that, we might totally disagree with.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean that you excuse harmful behavior.
Right, of course not.
But it does encourage us to, to approach those situations with maybe a little bit of understanding
Right.
and even compassion. And what's important to remember is that Epictetus, he really believed that the goal of life wasn't to become this, emotionless robot.
Right.
It was to find true happiness, true fulfillment.
And how do we do that? Like what's the secret sauce?
Well, for Epictetus, true happiness came from aligning ourselves with what he called the rational order of the universe.
Okay, so what does that actually mean though? Like how do we actually do that?
So he uses this wonderful analogy. He says, imagine life is like a ball game.
Okay.
Okay, so there are rules to the game.
Yeah.
Each player has a certain role to play. And then, of course, unexpected things happen.
Like the ball takes a bad bounce.
Exactly. Or a call doesn't go your way.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like that in life, right? But a skilled player, they don't waste their energy complaining about the rules or blaming the refs.
Right.
They focus on what they can control.
Yeah.
Their effort, their skill, their attitude.
Right.
And they actually find the joy in just playing the game,
Yeah.
regardless of the outcome.
So it's about like focusing on what we can control, like our actions, our responses, and not trying to control the uncontrollable.
Precisely. And when we do that, when we accept what is and focus on our own actions,
Yeah.
that's where we find that sense of inner peace
Yeah.
that external circumstances can't touch.
It's like we're finding freedom within the structure of the game, the boundaries of life.
Exactly. And this is where, Epictetus leaves us with this really, really thought-provoking question. He says, what kind of teacher are you still waiting for?
Whoa. Okay, break that down for me.
So what he's saying is that so often we wait for like some external source of wisdom,
Or like a guru or something.
Yeah, like a teacher, a guru, the perfect self-help book.
Right.
But what he's saying is that the real teacher, it's already within us.
Mm.
We have the power to change our own lives, to choose how we react, to really shape our own destinies.
So it's about like taking ownership, right? Like realizing that, we have the tools we need. We have to actually use them.
Absolutely. And what's been so great about this deep dive into Epictetus is that we see how practical, how relevant his teachings still are, even all these centuries later. And, he lived what he preached.
Right.
Choosing to teach in the heart of this bustling city rather than going off to some, secluded mountaintop. He wanted his philosophy to meet people where they were.
I love that.
To engage with the messiness of life, not try to escape from it.
And that's what I find so inspiring about Epictetus.
Yeah.
It's that he doesn't just throw these like lofty ideas out there. He gives us this practical,
Framework.
yes, a framework
Yeah.
for dealing with, the challenges that like we all face.
Yeah.
The frustrations, the anxieties, the temptations. Like he gets it.
Yeah. He reminds us that real freedom, it doesn't come from trying to control the world around us, but from mastering our own inner world.
Mhm.
Our thoughts, our judgments, our reactions to things.
It's a really powerful message. One that, honestly, I think we could all use a reminder of every now and then.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did, back in ancient Rome.
Totally.
Think about it this way. If someone were to observe our daily actions, how we react to stress, the choices that we make,
Yeah.
what would they say our true values actually are?
Hmm.
You know, would it line up with the values that
Yep.
that we might claim to have? That's what Epictetus is really challenging us to consider.
That's a really powerful question to, sit with. And it's the perfect note to wrap up our deep dive into the wisdom of Epictetus.
Hmm.
He reminds us that real change, real happiness, it starts from within. It's a journey, right? Of self-discovery, self-mastery, and really aligning ourselves with those principles of wisdom and integrity.
It is, and it's a journey worth taking. And who knows, you might just find that the greatest teacher you've been waiting for has been there all along.